Support for this video is provided by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build your online presence and help run your business.
So it's 2020, and we all know what that means.
Oh, now that's an entrance.
Prime Minister of Japan.
And with the Olympics comes a whole lot of people. Now, usually tourism is seen as a good thing. It can help the economy, it increases the amount of local jobs available for the community. But what if the country is already flooded with tourists before the Olympics has even begun? In 2012 to 2017, the number of tourists in Japan jumped from 8.4 million to 28.7 million people. The United Nations World Tourism Organization counted this 20 million person jump in 5 years to be a record for them. And you can certainly notice the difference.
What do you think, Andrew?
This is my own personal nightmare.
So in 2012, I went to Kyoto with my friends and family many times, and it was great. It was super peaceful, it was very quiet, and in looking back at all the photos, I don't know what I'm doing here, you could definitely tell it wasn't overwhelmed by tourists. Jump to about 2 years ago, I think, Yoshi and I went there, and it was mayhem.
This is probably the busiest I think I've ever seen it.
Pretty much everywhere that we went to looked completely different to how I remember it being.
This is like a complete roadblock. Everybody wants to stop here and try and get a photo with nobody else in it, but it's almost impossible nowadays because there's so many people.
So there's actually over 2,000 different shrines and temples in Kyoto that you can see. However, it seems as though pretty much everyone goes for the same 4 or 5 different ones. In many of these areas in Kyoto, tourism has, by all definitions, maxed out, and the government has just started to put in some reactionary bans in place. So as of October 25th, 2019, you're now no longer allowed to take photos down certain private streets and areas in Kyoto. And this is mainly a response to people behaving badly when they're trying to take photos with geisha, or maiko as they're known in Kyoto. People have been climbing fences to get a better look, they've been chasing maikos down the street and forcing them to take selfies with them, following taxis, waiting outside of these established tea houses just to get a photo with maiko. And it's just annoying and frustrating, and the people of the city are not happy about it. Now, of course, in this kind of situation, it's really easy to look towards these specific people doing bad things and just absolve yourself of all kind of blame and guilt. You can blame a certain nationality, there's too many of them. You can blame Instagram content culture because everyone's just obsessed with taking photos these days. But if you just think of it like that, you're really not going to get anything done and nothing changes. Getting angry at people for wanting to take photos for their Instagram is just completely useless because that's just a way of life right now. There are a lot of Chinese tourists in Japan, and there always will be, and there's a lot of people wanting to take photos for their Instagram, and that's how it is at the moment. In order to make a change, you have to fix the outcome of the problem because people are always going to want to visit Kyoto. So what is being done to fix it?
文化の違いによって一部において摩擦がある。京都には例えば2000を超えるお寺神社があるんです。ほとんどは静かな、そういうところに案内する。なかなかそういうところが、発信ができてない。
I don't think it's a bad thing to be doing that. Definitely, that's something that I do on this channel all the time. I try to promote areas that are outside of the main cities, lesser known places, hidden gems, that kind of thing. But one thing that I always notice when I go to these places is that it's actually not all that accessible for the average tourist. Like, the train will be able to take you out there, but once you're there to see all the different spots, if you don't have a rental car, it's incredibly difficult to get around. So while I think it's a good thing to be promoting lesser known areas, it also has to go hand in hand with something to fix the poor accessibility. The other issue is that as much as you promote these lesser known areas in Japan, people are still going to want to visit Fushimi Inari and Kiyomizu-dera. There's no stopping people from wanting to see that unless they've already been to Japan before. Now, if you were to ask my opinion, so beware, there's some generalizations coming up. In doing research for this topic and trying to find ways that Japan is trying to combat over-tourism, I was honestly kind of shocked at how little I could find. Apart from the 2 examples that I just gave you now, I really couldn't see much else that Japan is doing. And given that the tourism is expected to hit 40 million people this year, I think they need to do something, and fast. I actually just made a video about how Japan stops its culture from dying out or fading away by protecting like national treasures and important cultural properties and things like that. So in the way of like arts and crafts and culture in that aspect, I think they're doing really well. But in terms of preserving the actual environment and the peace of the area, I feel as though they're not really doing enough. So the question still stands.
How do we combat over-tourism?
In doing research for this video, I actually found quite a number of different ways that countries are dealing with over-tourism in their area. Berlin has restricted pulling suitcases with wheels in certain areas so they don't disturb the locals. Amsterdam tour guides can't have more than 20 people per group when previously they were allowed 60. Croatia, Bruges and Santorini all have restrictions on the amount of cruise ship passengers that are allowed on land that day. Boracay in the Philippines closed down the entire island for 6 months just to clean up the mess from tourists. And actually when I was in the Philippines, I went canyoning with some of my friends. They were telling us that they only allow a certain number of people in the canyons per day, and they also close the canyons to all tours for 1 day a week just to make sure that they can clean up the mess, anything that was left behind, and also gives a chance for the water to run its natural course. And another thing that I saw in person was in Seoul in South Korea. I went to the Bukchong Hanok village, I think is what it's called. And this area has become really popular with tourists quite recently, but the thing is that it used to be a residential area, and a lot of the locals were getting very frustrated with the amount of people that were flooding the streets, and they couldn't live life as normal. So there are a number of uniform signs that have been put up saying things like make sure that you're very quiet at all times, only visiting in certain areas, and don't trespass onto other people's property. These all sound like very common sense things, but common sense isn't as common as you think it is. And another thing that I noticed was that at the bottom and at the top of the street, there are about 4 or 5 full-time employees employed to just stand there, and they made sure that if anyone was too loud and rowdy, they would just calm them down.
And overall, I think it's relatively quiet here, and like the tourists are quite respectful, but there's a couple of people definitely that are maybe a little too loud, a little too rambunctious, but apart from that, it's not bad.
Now, I know that all these rules in place just sound like ways to stop you from having fun, and so we can look back nostalgically and be like, well, back in my day, we didn't have any rules. But no, that's stupid. Traveling is becoming more and more affordable and accessible every single day, and it's only gonna get cheaper. So these are the rules that have to be in place in order for us to have our cake and eat it too.
Yeah, but what can I do?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good point. So obviously all of the things that I just mentioned are steps for the Japanese government to take, which is probably a waste of my time because they're probably not sitting around watching my videos. But what are some things that we as tourists can do to combat over-tourism and unsustainable tourism? The first one is one that I've mentioned in a previous video called How Instagram is Changing Travel Forever. I highly recommend you go and watch that one. It relates very closely to this video here. That is to stop geotagging the places that you go to. Now, obviously you can just tag like the country or the city that you might be in or the area or something like that. But tagging one very specific place or one specific building or Instagram location, it can pull way too many people to just that one spot. There's actually an Instagram account that I follow called Instarect, and it's actually kind of depressing sometimes, but it basically showcases all of the places around the world that have been basically geotagged way too many times, and now it's just overrun with tourists, and it highlights the ways that it is really, really a detriment to the environment there. So not geotagging a place can do a huge amount to spread out the amount of tourists in an area. Number 2 is the one that I've mentioned a little earlier, and that is traveling to lesser known places. Thankfully, I have an entire YouTube channel dedicated to, not entirely dedicated, but I travel to a lot of places that are not well known and places that could certainly do with your tourist dollars. But of course, one thing to note when you do go to these places, as I mentioned earlier, it can be a little bit hard to get around. So if it seems like the kind of area that doesn't have a lot of public transport, I would highly recommend getting a rent-a-car, or you can just take things slow. That also works too. Number 3 is that when you're traveling to these places, make sure that you're spending your money on the stores there, giving back to the local community. And that includes accommodations. So traveling slower, again, like I just mentioned, staying overnight in some of these places, it stops local businesses from being robbed of that opportunity, basically. Number 4 is one that's very simple and easy to do, and that is traveling with your own cutlery set and reusable water bottle. When you're traveling to Japan, especially, there is so much damn plastic in this country. So having your own cutlery is very, very useful, and it also just means you've got less trash to throw away, which is great because there's no rubbish bins anywhere, especially when you're going to Southeast Asian countries, pollution from single-use plastics is one of the main things that is a detriment to the environment. So having your own reusable water bottle, I have a filter water bottle that I use a lot in Indonesia. I drank from some like dodgy looking taps and I never got sick because it's got a really, really great filter in it. So get a filtered water bottle that's safe to use in other countries and you won't have to buy a water bottle while you're traveling. Number 5 is when you're traveling to developing countries, resist the urge to give your money to beggars and children on the street and instead give your money to some reputable non-for-profits and charities and organizations that are guaranteed to do good with your money. Number 6 is never buy wildlife products, and that includes things like seashells or trinkets made out of ivory or rare animal fur or anything like that, and that is because you could be inadvertently supporting the trafficking and exploitation of very rare and endangered species. So it's very similar to the ivory trade that's happening in some countries. Just don't support it. And the last one, number 7, is to encourage others to do the same. I think if everybody keeps each other accountable, it will really make for a better experience overall. If you see someone doing something incorrect, just be like, hey man, that's not it. This especially goes for people that have large social media followings. If you are a travel blogger as well, I know there's a couple of them that follow me. Try and encourage people to make little changes like this, and I think that it will impact a huge amount of people that are traveling to these countries. And especially when you're going to be posting photos in beautiful places, follow the rules, stay behind the fence, make sure that you're not encouraging really irresponsible behavior, and I think social media influencers will probably have a less poor name if we are a little more responsible with how we post things and how we share our travel experiences. So yeah, that's it. That's all I've got written. So these are all my notes for this. A lot of writing done today. And then it just says Squarespace. So I guess it's time for me to pay some bills. So if you haven't already heard of Squarespace, Squarespace is the website that helps you build your own website very, very easily, smoothly, and beautifully. I have my own Squarespace website. I love it. I've received many jobs from Squarespace, and I think it just helped increase my overall presence in a very professional way online. They have a number of beautiful templates on their site. It makes it very easy. You can just drag and drop all of your travel photos and videos onto there, and voila, it is all ready and done for you. If you are a social media person, you can link up all your accounts, you post to one of them and it automatically updates it on your site. There's many different things for many different people, so if you would like to get started, go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and then when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/currentlyhannah for 10% off your first purchase of a domain or a website. I was actually helping my dad build a website recently, and he was using like one of those sites where like they didn't have a bunch of templates, you kind of have to do a lot of it yourself and like a lot of coding and stuff, and by the end I was just like, Dad, just get a Squarespace. Squarespace has been a really long sponsor for this channel. I keep clapping, I don't know why. Squarespace has been a really long sponsor on this channel, and that's great because it just means that people keep using the code and supporting me, which is supporting my channel, helping me do more stuff like that. So thank you so much for Squarespace for sponsoring, and for you for watching and supporting me, and blah, 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 blah. That's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I have been talking for 54 minutes. Wow. Wow.
Wow.
If you would like to support me on this channel and what I do in making videos, I have a Patreon, so go and check that out. I also have an Instagram and I have Facebook. No, don't look me up on Facebook. I will not accept your Facebook request, I'm sorry. And like and subscribe and comment and blah, blah, blah. I don't really have like a defining like final line like I do with my kind of video essay kind of videos. I probably should have written one out, but I guess I just wrote that final point and then I was like, I'm done. I've been writing since 9 a.m. I can't bother to write the end. Anyway, here's some bloopers. The local community increases pride. And that would be like Fushimi Inari, Arashiyama, getting angry at people. I just don't think that it's aggressive enough. Maybe a solution to problem. From wanting to see that. Blech. People are still gonna want to see Fushimi. Actually just made a video about Japan. Blech. Too loud and rowdy. that they were just, well, obvious. Well, I've been in doing some research around the world. In doing Croatia, Boracay, developing countries, blah 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 blah. That's all. Blah 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 blah. Very, very, very irresponsible behavior, and it's not the way. It's not the way. It's not the way, guys. It's just not the way.